Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible very much.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Logged in. Good afternoon to all. What do you
Uh,
need?
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting our keynote session in just 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the session. We are now reaching the last keynote session of today's event, and we are honored to have the renowned Professor Christopher Tang on our platform virtually as a keynote speaker. Christopher Tang is a UCLA Distinguished Professor and the holder of the Edward W. Carter Chair in Business Administration. In addition to these academic activities at UCLA, he serves as president of the Production and Operations Management Society from 2013 to 14 and as a chairman of the advisory board of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University Business School from 2012 to 2015. He has also served as a member of International Advisory Board of the Hong Kong City University Business School from 2009 to 2012 and as an external reviewer of the Columbia London Business School, Hong Kong University Executive MBA program, as well as the Chinese University of Hong Kong Executive MBA program. His research spans different areas including global supply chain management, retail operations, and social business operations. He has co-edited 4 books, co-written 1 book, and published over 100 academic articles in research journals and management articles in Wall Street journals, Financial Times, and The Guardian. He served on editorial board for over 15 international journals and research boards for startup companies. He has advised companies such as Abbott Laboratories, Accenture, Amazon, Anderson Consulting, Bay Networks, Emergent Electric, Federal Reserve Bank, GKN, Hewlett Packard Company, Honda America, Hughes Aircraft Company, Nestle USA, IBM, ICL International, Intertech Testing Services, Information Technology Institute, Johnson& and Johnson, Kleiner Perkins Caufield Bears, Corcuby, Northrop Grumman, and Orient Overseas Container Limited. Currently, he serves as a board member of Asia Pacific Health Ventures, California. Today, we have received a video of him as his keynote speech. Now, I request our student coordinator, Mr. Ronnie, to play the video. We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Professor Christopher Tang for sharing this video with us and enlightening our attendees. So in next 5 minutes, we will be approaching towards our closing ceremony. Please stay tuned.
नमस्कार सर.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Very good. So, sir, can we start now, sir?
Yes, please, sir. We go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Now we are approaching towards the closing ceremony of our International Conference on Data Analytics in Public Procurement and Supply Chain 2022. Here we have with us our esteemed chief guest, the panel members, the attendees, and the directors of both the institutes. Today we have with us Professor Bibek Suneja as our chief guest, who is the Dean of FMS University of Delhi. We have with us Professor Prabhat R. Acharya, Director of Arun Jaitley National Institute of Financial Management, Faridabad. We have with us our esteemed director, Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari, And we have our convener of the conference, Professor Madhuranjan Kumar. Now I would like to request Professor Prabhat R. Acharya Sir, Director NAJNIFM, to share a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Professor Soneja, Professor Tiwari, Dr. Madhuranjan Kumar, and all other research scholars who have logged in. It's been a delight to have this 2 days conference, international conference on data analytics in public procurement and supply chain. We're delighted to have this, and when we approached the finance minister, she was quite happy and excited that we are going to organize this kind of a conference and all. Had it been a physical conference, I'm sure she would have loved to come and inaugurate it. But nevertheless, we had our blessings, and I'm grateful that the former Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, agreed to inaugurate the conference yesterday, and he spoke very nicely about the basic ethos behind this conference. So I'm delighted that we also, in collaboration with NITI Bombay, have been able to organize this conference. I'm grateful for that, and particularly to Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari ji. We had this two days conference where we had more than almost 80 papers which were presented. I could listen to some of the tracks because there are 3 different tracks in which presentations were going on. And almost 80 plus papers were scheduled, but I don't know how many were presented finally, but I'm sure almost 70 to 80% papers must have been presented. And that's a fairly good large number for 2 days conference being done online and all. It's a fairly large number. And I'm sure some of the, from the talks the presentations which I saw, some of them were extremely good. Some of them needed a little bit of enhancements further. Some of them were conceptual papers and all. And obviously, they were also part of the research studies, but they were perhaps the researchers will carry it forward next full time. And some of them may not be that good to look at it and all and all. That's okay. That part of every such conference and all. But nevertheless, it was a very important topic to talk about data analytics, use of data analytics in procurement, whether it's public procurement, other procurement and supply chain, is a very topical issue that confronts government as such, which is a large purchaser, and also all organizations, whether companies, private or public, all of them are involved in this and all. So as somebody rightly said at the beginning of the conference, the companies are fighting over supply chain knowledge. Basically, whoever will put in a good supply chain can have an edge over the others. So in this age where most of it is digitized, most of it is done on digital platforms, acquisitions are mostly happening, particularly government procurements. With the e-procurement portal created, with the government e-marketplace in place, now we have everything on digital platforms. So now we have a huge database which is now have to be analyzed and all. And then once you analyze this database, we can get some meaningful information. So use of data analytics in such kind of huge procurements, which last year I understand that for FY 21-2022, the government e-marketplace, the procurement was almost 1 lakh crores, or more than 1 lakh crores, which is a huge procurement. Now, so the point is, with this kind of procurements taking place, it is necessary that these kind of conferences should bring about new lights into this, new vision into this, to understand how you can use the techniques of data analytics for purpose of analyzing and get some insightful information which can help in policy decision making. I'm very thankful to all the organizers, all the people who are at the back end doing all kinds of donkey's work to organize this conference, did all the hard job for this to got the papers, contact all the researchers and bring them all together on a platform like this. I'm thankful to all of them, for people particularly who are not at the front side, but we know they must have done a lot of work behind it, particularly all the research scholars of NITI who have done tremendous work behind this, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to the director NITI for that and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your kind words. Now I would like to request our own director, sir, Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari, to share a few words. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Respected our chief guest, Sri Vivek Suneja ji, and director of Arun Jaitley National Institute of Finance Management, Acharya Sahab, and our beloved Dr. Madhuranjan ji, and all my friends who are listening to this closing ceremony. Actually, sir, first of all, it's a very proud privilege for all of us to get associated with you and your institute. And for that, actually, our previous contact with Dr. Madhuranjan ji was one of the key link. And when we heard that, sir, this, and of course, you are well-known institute, sir, not only in India and abroad also. So we were very happy to get connected with you, sir. And when this conference was planned, particularly this topic is so contemporary, sir, because you know very well in India, massive amount of procurements are being done. And supply chain is such a bottleneck that 14% of our GDP is going here, whereas even the developed countries also, they have more, just only 8.5 or 9% of GDP, maximum cost of their supply chain and logistic cost. So keeping that in mind, and then this enormity of the topic that we have to do something, and accordingly we listened very recently, Government of India also, Honorable Prime Minister has announced a scheme under the PM Gati Shakti that how to train more and more people in this domain so that they can reduce the burden and also the doing ease of business and the interministerial coordination to be enhanced through that scheme. And many of the digitization programs are being launched to help the government as well as private parties to solve the problem. And you know very well that for years, supply chain grown in complexity, and many of the byproduct of increasing complexity of what we make and the and dramatic reduction we expect in the cost of transportation, making it economical to reach out to the minimum cost suppliers. And also, we have to see that around the globe, the trade and trade-related things should flourish without much hindrances. And all these things need to be combined with the transparency and particularly prices which are varying from e-commerce manufacturer to and to other manufacturers. And all but they need the first people to buy the things from the low cost but without compromising the quality. And on this line, many of the myth that we are having in the government that always go for L1, and Honorable former Vice Chairman of the Niti Aayog has very clearly mentioned in during the opening remark that we have to bother more about the quality, of course, cost, but not this simply choose L1 without bothering about the quality. So quality-based assessment should be done in order to promote the better product and better commodity for this thing. Then coming to the procurement, sir, we have seen that this data analytics in the procurement became so powerful that one of my friends who has just published a very good article, which is more like a case study in a very powerful journal called Manufacturing and Service Operations Management. And these are the informed journals, sir, which is just few months back. It was also chief edited by the Christopher Tang, who just spoken 2 minutes before, actually, sir. And it's a flagship journal, Management Science, whose editor-in-chief, Professor David Semchi Levy, who took so much pain, and even up to night 1:30 on his count, he came on the live on the conference and given the keynote address. Even today also you have seen Rakesh Nagi, who has developed many good transportation model and network design. He also bothered and came live, that too when at his time it was too inconvenient. So many of the people who have given their opinion about data-driven methods for procurement, they participated along with several of our Indian academicians who are well known for their contributions. And you have seen in the list, they were like Dr. Professor Ravi Shankar ji, and we have one of the very famous OR expert whose video is more than seen by lakhs of the people, G. Srinivasan ji, and Balaram also was there from IIM Calcutta, C. Rajendran ji, one of the very renowned person. So most of the supply chain related experts, sir, we have brought to the fore in this conference. And this credit, sir, goes to your institution, Madhuranjan ji, and some of our people who are working behind the scenes, as you have mentioned. So with this note, sir, only I can say, whatever message Professor Rajiv Kumar ji mentioned, we have to strengthen that, sir. And our tie-up with you should become more at a granular level, at the what you call operational level, so that we can do something concrete by our association. And with that note, sir, I request you to have a very strong tie-up with the NITI, and many such events we should organize jointly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director, sir. Without your support and guidance, this would have never been successful. So now I would like to invite our chief guest, Professor Vivek Suneja. Professor Vivek Suneja is Dean of FMS, the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. As a Felix Scholar, he studied for his doctoral degree at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom. For over a decade, he taught at various premier universities in Britain, including at the University of Salford, Manchester, and the Open University. Upon his return to India, he joined FMS as a professor of strategic management. He has served as Dean Planning and as Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi. Professor Suneja has published several books and papers in the areas of strategy, marketing, economics, ethics, culture, and public policy. Among his prominent books are Markets, a multi-dimensional approach to the market economy, published by Routledge, UK. Policy Issues for Business, published by Sage, UK. And The Economics of Marketing, published by Edward Elgar, UK. His most recent book, Economic Theory and the Policy Amidst Global Disconnect, has been published by Francis Taylor and Francis. Professor Suneja has done consulting and training work for several prominent international and national organizations. Now I request Professor Suneja to share a few words.
Thank you, Shri Prabhat Acharya ji, Director of the Arun Jaitley National Institute of Financial Management, Professor Madhu Ranjan Kumar ji, Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari, who is also convener of the conference along with Professor Madhu Ranjan ji, Professor Christopher Tang, who was here with us, and all the distinguished participants of this conference. It's an honor to be invited to this valedictory session, and I'm deeply grateful. Thank you. Before I say something about this conference, I would like to remember and pay homage to the late Shri Arun Jaitley ji. I had the good fortune to work with Shri Jaitley ji for over a couple of years. We were both on the governing body of the Shriram College of Commerce of the University of Delhi. Shri Jaitley was an alumnus of the college and committed to the college. He was on the governing body. And I was there on the governing body by virtue of being dean and Pro Vice Chancellor of the University. And over the time I worked with him, I was struck by his great capacity for insight. As in the case of public procurement and supply chain management, lawyers too need to sift through large volumes of data and facts and separate the chaff from the grain. Indeed, before anyone can testify in a court of law, one has to take the oath that one shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This is necessitated by the possibility that one can use incomplete or irrelevant data and facts to obfuscate the truth. A good lawyer, and Shri Arun Jaitley was a great lawyer, can quickly analyze the large volume of facts presented to him, the data presented to him, and home onto what is significant rather than merely extraneous. This key capacity for discernment was evident not just in the legal career of Professor Jaitley, but in all aspects of his brilliant and multifaceted life, including his political career and his distinguished stint as the Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs from 2014 to 19. Shri Jaitley ji, had he been here today, and I'm sure he's here in spirit, would be greatly pleased to see the great work being done by the National Institute of Financial Management set up in his name under Professor Prabhat Acharya and the contributions of Professor Madhu Ranjan Kumar. He would also be delighted by this conference that's been organized. And I'm sure he'd be very impressed. I have closely followed this conference over the last 2 days. I attended the inaugural session. I heard the very insightful address by Shri Prabhat Acharya, who introduced the whole conference to us. The guest address, chief guest address by Dr. Rajiv Kumar was deeply insightful. And as Professor Acharya was just saying, he also stressed the fact that apart from data analysis, you also need to look at quality issues. So L1 won't do it. So both quality and quantity, both aspects are important. Professor Lemay gave a very insightful keynote address. And then, of course, Professor Tiwari, in his vote of thanks, nicely rounded up things. And the introductory session was a great curtain raiser. Over the last 2 days, and I have been dipping in and out, there have been great keynote speakers, very insightful panel discussions, a large number of excellent and very technical presentations. And most importantly, and I must congratulate DT and Professor Tiwari and all his colleagues and his students for organizing almost a seamless conference. I mean, so many participants and yet on time, no technical snags, beautifully done. It's a major task. And you also saved us a lot of carbon emissions. Imagine all of us going to Gurgaon, and I'm sure Prabhat ji would be happy to have us there. But we'd all have to fly from various parts of the country and would have added to global warming. You can see Delhi temperatures today. I mean, I was born here. I don't know what Mumbai is like, Tiwari sahab, but Delhi is burning. So we have saved carbon emissions, and I congratulate Professor Acharya, Madhu Ranjan ji, and Professor Tiwari for bringing that about. There will be some great contributions. If I may be permitted, I may say a few words about the theme of this conference. So the conference has been about data analytics and how this can improve public procurement and supply chain management. And as was being mentioned, this is a huge area now involving billions of rupees. Knowledge creation in general involves 2 steps. The first step is analysis, and the second is synthesis. So when you want to understand any complex problem, whether it's public procurement or it's a strategy case, it's a medical problem, first, you break the problem into its parts. That's what analyze means. The word analyze means to break it up into its constituent parts. So, for example, if you have blood analysis, if you have disease and the doctor refers you to a pathology lab, they take a drop of blood and analyze it. When they put a drop of blood under a microscope, what appears as one, just red. Under the microscope, it breaks up into its constituents. It reveals its constituents. So there are red blood cells, there are white blood cells, there are platelets, there's eosinophils. You can count them, you can look at their proportions. That's analysis. But then there's a second step, which is synthesis. That the person who looks at this individual data sees whether they are in the right proportion. For example, if the white blood cells start dominating the red blood cells, you have leukemia, which is cancer. If you have red cells which are in short supply, you have anemia. So you need synthesis. So analysis plus synthesis. You may ask, what value is gained by first breaking a problem into its parts and then recombining the parts into a whole. And the idea is that once you recombine the part after analyzing, you get a whole which was different from the whole that you had earlier. Earlier, red blood was just red blood, but now you understand what red blood entails. This is not just true of blood analysis. This is true of any problem, whether in physics or mechanical engineering or data analysis, public procurement. Indeed, my first name, so my name is Vivek Suneja. The second name, Suneja, I only understood after getting married. Suneja, Sunteja. So Sunteja, you'll have a happy marriage. So that came to me after marriage. But my first name is an interesting one. It's Vivek. It's a Sanskrit word. It has 2 root words, viv and ek. Viv and ek. Now, viv means several, many. In Hindi, the words that come from the root word viv are vivid, vistar. And English, because English is an Indo-European language, and it derived essentially from Sanskrit. All the words of English are Sanskrit in its roots. The word various, variety, vivacious, variegated, all come from the word viv. Again, means several. The word ek means one. Do ek means one. Before I explain what Vivek therefore means, I lived in Britain for a very long while, almost 15 years. And once I was, so this is in light mode, I was trying to explain to my British friends that, look, your names are Tom and Harry and Jim, but all our names have meaning. For example, Madhu Ranjan ji, I mean, the very name is honey, right? So they said, okay, what is the meaning of your word, of your name? आप तो टॉम बोल रहे हैं, विवेक का क्या मतलब? So I deco, then I said English is an Indo-European language, comes from Sanskrit, and the word viv, which means variety, various in English comes from vivid. And then before I could explain what ek means, they said, okay, we've understood your name. I said, bhai, abhi to aadha pata hai, I've told you half my name. How do you understand? They said, no, it means several aches, headache, heartache, pain in the, so I never tried to explain my name to the British again. I mean, they took it as several aches. But if you look at the Sanskrit origin, viv ek means what? What appears as ek is actually viv. Jo ek dikhta hai, wo actually several hai. That is analysis. The power of discernment. So if you look at the meaning of Vivek in English dictionary, it says discernment, discern, analyze. What appears as one has many aspects. For example, air we breathe appears as air, but it's made of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. Light appears white. Put it under a prism, breaks up into 7 colors of the violet, indigo, brown, green, yellow, orange, and red. Vibgyo. The rainbow does that through water acting as a prism. So, ek viv dikhta hai. That's analysis. But then you recombine. Viv ko ek kariye. So these parts interact with each other. They are not separate. They interact with each other. So while oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide may be different at one level, at a deeper level, they're all made up of common ingredients. They're all made up of atoms. And there are only 100 elements, as you know. They're made up of common elements. Atoms are made up of common protons, neutrons, electrons. They're made up of quarks. So the building blocks and are very, very similar. जो विव दिखता है वो विवेक वो एक है. So analysis and synthesis. And why am I going into this? Any knowledge generation will therefore involve 2 steps. The analysis is done by specialists. You specialize in a narrow domain. So you can be a marketing specialist, you can be an HR specialist, you can be a data analysis specialist, you can be an OR person, you can be an inventory guy, and then there can be sub-specializations. That is important. Division of labor is important because we can't know everything. So we need to analyze and we need to be good at a little part. But then who will combine all this? Who will see the big picture? And often the big picture is lost because none of us has domain knowledge in other aspects. So you need to generalize. Generalizing is not a dirty word. A generalist is someone who specializes in being a generalist. Earlier they used to say jack of all and master of none. I think one needs to be jack of all and master of one. Jack of all and master of one. You need to be able to synthesize. And the role of centers such as the Arun Jaitley Center or the role of this conference is precisely that. It has dual roles. One, let people look at different aspects. So I gave, for example, at the request of Professor Ranjan, I gave a paper just in the last session on ethics, the transaction cost, the qualitative aspects. There are people who were looking at supply chain aspects. They were looking at, we had Professor Levy talk about how private companies are handling a little aspect of inventory management and so on, and pricing, dynamic pricing. So a dual role. Viv bhi karna hai aur ek bhi karna hai. Break it up, bring it together. And only at conferences you bring it together. Only at centers like the Arun Jaitley Center you synthesize. Otherwise, people will work in the little silos and the big picture will be lost. The reason I think all the ministries are being brought together in India Gate along one route is synthesis, that they all talk to each other. And I'm told there's going to be an underground connecting framework so people can talk. Finance can talk to human resources or education, and education can speak to environment. Synthesize. So I would like to congratulate. This has been a brilliant conference. I congratulate both the organizers at the center, Madhu Ranjan ji and Prabhat ji, and everybody at NITI, Professor Tiwari, for seamlessly and brilliantly bringing this about. And thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful to Professor Madhu Ranjan ji and others who invited me to this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before Madhu Ranjan ji should come and say final words, With your permission, Acharya Sahab, Madhuranjan ji, I want to say 2 lines sir, about Vivek ji, which he mentioned. If you permit that.
बोलिए आप लोग गुरु जी हैं आप लोग बोलिए
Thank you, sir. Actually, Vivek ji, आपका नाम जो है ना विवेक, this has many citations in the famous epic book by Tulsidas ji, Ramcharitmanas. And one very relevant quote I used to cite because that is very much pertinent to this conference also. Actually, this word Vivek was mentioned कि विद्या बिन विवेक उपजाए. Means Tulsidas ji is saying that ki generation of knowledge or education without Vivek means, as you said, discerning ability. श्रम फल बढ़े फले बिन पाए मतलब only labor increases without giving any real benefit actually, correct? So any education without the application of Vivek actually, correct? So this is only leading to the labor. And the question comes from where Vivek comes. Then he gave another answer to support this logic. He says that कि बिनु सत्संग विवेक न होई. Means satsang means where eminent people's company is there. So like this conference or where the Acharya Sahib is there, Madhuranjan is there, all other stalwarts were there. So this company actually brings more up Viveki hai sir, like the Param Viveki. So Jag Bali Kamuni Param Viveki. So at least 100 places, sir. This word so which is synonyms with the extreme discernible technique, discernible knowledge is already there. And sir, you talk about that, so I thought that let us strengthen your concept by giving what I know about it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
चलिए अब विवेक ये कहता है कि इस 2 दिन के समारोह का समापन किया जाए.
Yes, sir.
समापन के पहले मैं यह शुरुआत जरूर करना चाहूंगा that I am suffering from huge amount of inferiority complex after getting
Please don't say
such
like
a
this.
big expansion of the word called Vivek, not from the fields of management but also from the field of technology, represented respectively by Professor Vivek Suneja and Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari. So there perhaps cannot be anything better than to tell all the audiences. I find that there are 56 people who are already logged in, and there are 581 persons who are watching this closing ceremony online. So, as Sri Vivek Suneja has said, that to complement what Sri Vivek Suneja has said, not only that we have saved carbon prints, but we have also increased the physical participation of individual participating in this event, because normally the closing ceremony, everybody goes home, they will go to Lal Killa and Qutub Minar. So before I begin to thank all the individuals and groups who have made this onerous responsibility a success, my first thanks goes to all the 83 papers who contributed at this very first international conference of data analytics in public procurement. Public procurement itself is an under-researched subject. Going for data analytics within the realm of public procurement is like hunting for Kohinoor within so many Hiras. But the sheer presence of 83 papers have brought out that there are many Kohinoors within India and perhaps outside India too, which shows the richness of the subject we're talking about. Now, of all the 83 papers, we decided to grade them based on the assessment done by chairs and co-chairs and indicate to you the 2 best papers. So the first paper, which is scored 98 out of 100, or should I begin with second perhaps? That makes more sense. The second best paper, which scored 87 out of 100, is that of Professor Jagan Jacob and Dr. Fang Wan on the paper called Is Telemedicine Worth the Effort? A study on the impact of cost of effort on a healthcare platform with heterogeneous preferences. Congratulations, Dr. Jacob and Dr. Fang Wan. for your hard work. It started perhaps less than 6 months ago, and you have brought it to a level where you were good enough to talk about telemedicine within the realm of public procurement. And for the crowning glory of this concluding session, the paper which scored 98 out of 100, which I never scored in my 5 years of engineering, is by Shri Sandeep Verma, whose paper was titled or is titled State Procurement Capacity in a Crisis, a comparative study of global quest for COVID-19 vaccines in some states of India. So I must thank and congratulate Shri Sandeep Verma or Dr. Wang and Dr. Jagon Jacob for their hard work in which has now brought fruit in form of identification of the two best papers. Obviously, behind holding such an event, besides the individual and the group participation of authors, goes a lot of background effort. And at the helm of these two background effort, there is an individual called Dr. Manoj Kumar Tiwari, and there is also another stellar individual called Sri Acharya, who made it possible, who could give all the background infrastructural support to make such a nascent subject get the attention of the researchers across globe. We got it from Taiwan, Hong Kong, UK, and USA, obviously. It is also a time to thank many individuals within NITI and within AJNIFM. I still remember yesterday morning, Prabhat Acharya's login was not working properly, and we had to call our computer person. Therefore, ये काम नहीं कर रहा है कुछ कीजिए इसमें. Then Mr. Amitabh Datta came running in कि मेरे computer में भी कुछ problem है. So I was wondering if 83 persons begin to come and tell me that there is a problem in my PC, how will we handle it? But it goes to the credit of all of the background persons, whether in NITI, whether in AJNIFM, who could rise to the occasion in a virtual world, which is data analytics, and make it successful. It is also the time for me to thank all the individual chairpersons, co-chairpersons, Sri VP Pathak, Sri Vikas Rohila, Professor Ravi Shankar, my old friend, Dr. Vijay Dikshit, Professor Rakesh Roth, Professor Vishwajit Mohanty, Professor Alok Chaudhary, Professor Balakrishnan Nankhede, panelist, Professor Ravi Shankar again, Shri Saurabh Mishra, Dr. Rakesh Sinha for such an insightful discussion today on the data analytics and supply chain performance. Mr. Vishnu Subhash, again from bringing a practical perspective yesterday. Then Professor C. Rajendran, Dr. Akhilesh Kumar, Professor Dev Bhatta Das, Professor Balram Avithur, Dr. Krishna Kumar, Dr. Maheshwar Singh Mahapatra, Mr. Bhaskar Narang, Dr. Gopala Krishnan, who has done a very huge work in part number unification and press, Professor Ravindra Gokhale, Professor Amitabh Datta, once my boss and today my respected colleague at AJNIFM, Professor Rakesh Rajpurohit, Dr. Manak Majumdar, Professor Gautam Datta, Dr. Ashinder Kaur, Professor Balakrishna Narkhede, Professor Samir Srivastava, Professor Sachin Jaiswal, Professor Rakesh Rao, Professor R. Sridharan, Dr. Sudhanshu Joshi, Professor Vidyadhar Vedham, and today's panelist, Mr. Rajesh Abral, Mr. Alok Kumar, Mr. Prakash Mirani, Mr. Manoj Kumar Sharma, Professor Shyam Sundar for such a conceptual insight into the emerging field of blockchain and smart contracts. Shri Khurana from today's session. Again, Shri Sandeep Verma, who deserves a congratulations. Professor Ravindra Gokhale. Thereafter, Professor Ajit Majumdar, Dr. J.K. Jha, Vidyadhar Gedham. Then Shri G. Srinivasan, Yash Dalanti, Mayank Majumdar, Professor Hema Date, Dr. Priyanka Verma, and Mahesh Mahapatra. Before it ends, अंत में क्या साथ जाएगा ये हमेशा कहा जाता है और अंत में आपके अच्छे कर्म ही जाते हैं. So perhaps there was nothing more apt than having the concluding session dedicated to ethics by somebody who is known for his contribution of ethics in management, Dr. Vivek Suneja. Dr. Suneja, who is such a stalwart, I mean, he's primarily a professor of business strategy, but over a period of time, he has come to emphasize the ethical part of business strategy substantially, and the way he has spoken today, all of us can understand his level of erudition in such a ticklish subject. So I should say sayonara for the next year, hopefully, and not goodbye. So that brings us to the end. आप सबों को प्रणाम, आप सबों को सत श्री अकाल, खुदा हाफिज, and again sayonara without the sa. Thanks a lot.
Madanjan ji, just one small word, then we can say, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, sir, in this journey, few of my faculty members and research scholars are like Rafin, Roni, Hema Diwan, Rosaline, and few of them, sir, they have very, they work day and night to realize this. And they all are here. So if you permit, sir, just I think they can log in also and have
we can do clap for them.
you, sir, so that they can see Vivek ji and Acharya ji and you also.
Yeah.
So my request to all of them to log in and then we can have a photograph with all of them.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for this permission. So now log in.
They should come and switch on their videos so that
Yeah.
you can have a digital shot.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And they are the backbone of this conference.
Yes, sir. They have done very hard work. So particularly, two of them were suffering from COVID, but they also keep on doing work.
I got it. I see. Where are they?
They are coming, sir. Just actually, they are arranging things in nearby room actually, because we have made 2 rooms actually for this, and there were 4 rooms made for a bachelor student to join and attend the function. Sir. Correct.
Right. Oh, they're all sitting in that meeting.
Conference room, sir. It's called conference room of NITI, sir. So, Acharya, sir, when you come, I will show you all these details actually. Madanjan ji knows, but
Sure. Thank you.
he was my boss, no, sir, JS, Ministry of Education, sir, at that time.
Right. I know that. Thanks.
सर नहीं याद दिखाई दे रहा है. चलिए.
आ गए सर, सब आ गए.
इसी को कहते हैं सूक्ष्म रूप धरी. आगे आप बोलिए.
सूक्ष्म रूप उधर सिंह दिखावा, सर. करेक्ट.
सूक्ष्म रूप है जो कि सिंह को देख रहा है, जिसने इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाया. आप भारत के भविष्य हैं.
थैंक यू, सर.
हम लोग तो भारत के पुराने इतिहास के द्योतक हैं.
नहीं सर.
का भविष्य आपके और नरेंद्र मोदी जी के हाथों में है, मुझे अच्छी तरह मालूम है, क्योंकि वो स्टार्टअप को इनकरेज करेंगे और आप लोग स्टार्टअप बनाते रहेंगे, जो जब तक हम लोग जाएं इस दुनिया से, इस उम्मीद में कि वो स्टार्टअप ये यूनिकॉर्न हो जाए. आप सबों को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हृदय से कि आपने रात दिन इतना मेहनत किया कि हम या श्री आचार्य या श्री मनोज तिवारी मिलकर भी नहीं कर सकते थे. इसके लिए मैं आप सबों को अपने दिल से धन्यवाद देता हूं. श्री आचार्य जी की तरफ से भी मैं आपको धन्यवाद देता हूं. श्री विवेक सुनेजा जी की तरफ से भी मैं आपको धन्यवाद देता हूं. इतने उत्कृष्ट स्तर का आपने समन्वय किया, जो पहले हम भी ऑनलाइन कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करते थे कोविड के जमाने में, लेकिन across the countries, across different timelines, ensuring that Mr. David Simchi Levy is awake at 1 a.m.
Yes.
and willing to come live for a big achievement. And I must thank everybody for this. Only Mitra is visible by his name and not by his face.
So let's.
He was a person who suffered from COVID, but still, now I can see he's waving his hand. So thanks a lot, Mr. Rafin. Thanks a lot, many student coordinators. Some of them I still remember. Anupam tha, Pooja thi, और भी कुछ लड़के थे, आशीष था, Ayushi Chauhan. Some names I am missing, so I'm sorry. I think there were a few more names I often remember. Rohit was there, Amit was there. Thanks a lot for all of you. And I think we can now say goodbye till we meet next
Thank
year
you.
again.
Thank you.
Big hand to all of them.
We can now
You can give a big hand to all of them.
सुनेजा जी, अगली बार आपसे शून्य पर सुनेंगे, आज तो विवेक पर सुन लिए। ये मेरा विवेकाधिकार रहेगा कि अगली बार आप किस भाषा और किस विषय पर बोलेंगे।
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir. Thank you very much.
Take care, sir. Take care, sir. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.